Carol Shelby once said, "There's never enough horsepower, just not enough traction."
False.
Sorry, Carol, we're gonna have to disagree on this one. So after the previous outing at the track, where the gas pedal was basically a wheelie controller, we decided to take advantage of the nice November weather and try it one more time this year. Dad changed the pulleys on the blower to make it 1-to-1 and take away the overdrive, and also bolted 100 pounds of weight to the front. We did undo the timing retard, taking it back to base timing, because Dad felt like this should probably work. It is pretty amazing that we can be drag racing in November in Northeast Ohio. Well, that didn't work. There were some changes we could make, but since we had drag strip on the bottom of the frame, we decided we'd probably just call it a day instead of wadding the truck up and regroup and come up with a different plan. Sometimes the best way to move forward is to look backwards. So we still decided to revisit some of these old Plisco racing pictures that we had from the truck's evolution through the years. One thing we've noticed is that the ladder bars, the front axle, and the engine placement changed a lot through the years and we didn't even realize it. Now I was dead set on making sure we put double adjustable shocks in the front of this truck because we're using friction shocks right now. And you saw in the video where the wheel was bouncing up and down, that's because after the one wheel stand, they loosened up and we didn't recheck them. Now the truck did have coilovers on it at one time. And look at this aggressive angle on that ladder bar. Also notice that the cylinder head is above the top of the front wheel in this picture. And that is a true straight axle, not a drop axle. Now this is how the truck was set up when Dad got it. Notice that it's got a drop axle, and notice that it's got a different style ladder bar from the other pictures. Also notice that the engine is set down lower and farther back in the truck. This is what gives this thing such aggressive weight bias with having 62% over the rear wheels. We also noticed that they had bigger tires on it at one time, and this is before they louvered the bed where the radiator used to be. So after looking at all the changes that the Plisco brothers did, we looked at what we had, and there was a lot of opinions flying around on Facebook after the last video of what should be done. The first suggestion of just pulling timing and pulling power did not sit well with Dad. What's the point of building 1200 horsepower if you're only going to use 8 or 9? We knew the weight bias was the biggest thing to address. We had talked about moving the engine forward in the truck to take away some of that setback. And that was starting to look like the most viable option. A lot of people had suggested just raising up the ladder bars, but the way they're made with these safety hoops on the end, they can't go any higher, and it can't go forward because the crossmember is there. We did discuss lengthening the frame in the back and moving the rear end back to offset the weight, but that kind of fell apart. Dad was becoming more and more frustrated with this situation. The truck used to consistently run 860s on nitrous, and he started talking about just putting it back on the bottle. Moving the motor mounts forward really wasn't a big deal. The problem was clearance in the front with the frame, but we talked about putting a tube dropped crossmember across, getting rid of that big boxy frame, and we'd have plenty of clearance. So we were starting to go down that path. But the question kept coming up, why are we cutting apart a perfectly good working race car to make it work for an engine that is just maybe too much for the wheelbase, the weight bias, and what we're trying to accomplish? It was all good conversation for Thanksgiving dinner. Now, when it comes to supercharged, straight axle 1930s vehicles, there's not a lot of people to reach out to for help. Fortunately, one of the best lives right around the corner, and we invited Jeremy Bonnet to come over and kind of give us some tips on what to do.
Well, on a ladder bar car, it is what it is. Okay. Because on a 4-bar car, all you do is the 2 bars are like this. If you made an imaginary line with those two, wherever those come together, that's your instant center. Gotcha. If you took a line and went from here to there, okay? So if your instant center is above that line, the car is going to separate. If it's below that line, it's going to squat.
Gotcha.
So the fastest car, like a Pro Stock car, they don't really do anything, you know? So what they do is they're trying to stay as close to neutral as they can. So the car, instead of squatting or instead of having extension, it drives straight forward. So, I mean, that's ultimately going to be your best bet.
Or just shocks, not coilover. Now, we hit the track with the frame this last time the wheel stand was so bad.
Yeah, dug in.
Yeah.
Saying,
Right, yeah.
And do.
I mean, what
a
about
shock?
if the shock was here? It doesn't work there? I mean, I'm asking questions, I don't know.
Yeah, it could. I mean, it could, but it works better the closer it is to the problem is, I don't know whose axle this is. The problem with putting them here is it's going to break the axle. So that's why we put them as close to this as we can. Like, literally, my shock mount is as close to this to where I can get in and I can turn the wheel, and get to the grease fitting.
They could probably measure this and get a new axle that probably has a mount on it, which then, and this axle's old.
Jeremy gave us a lot of good things to think about over the Christmas season. But doing any actual work was going to have to wait, because 501 Perf Converter was throwing their customer Christmas party, and it was a great time. We did discuss options a little bit more, but by this point, Dad was pretty set on just going back to nitrous and doing what he knew. The good news was, Bubba felt like the converter that he's got in the truck should work on nitrous too. So we started shopping for carburetors, figuring on putting the old Indy intake back on, and taking advantage of Induction Solutions' Christmas sale. By the time January 1st came around, it was time to head over to Dragway 42 for the Hangover Nationals, a 2024 index race, then head to Dad's house afterwards to start working on the shop and get the 34 in position to start pulling everything apart. This has to be the biggest event that Dragway 42 has during the year. At Thanksgiving, we had discussed taking the workbench out of the center of the floor, moving it to the side so that we could put the 34 perpendicular and have room to work on it, because it's always tough getting in between the van and the truck. And the order had come in from Induction Solutions. A 15-pound bottle for a holy moly 2-stage plate kit capable of up to 400 horsepower per stage. All the work Dad had done having the block O-ringed for the supercharger made him extremely confident he could throw a lot of nitrous down this thing's throat. The next question was, would the cam that Dean Gellner had sourced for him for the supercharger work on nitrous? He'd found the old cam, and we checked those specs against the new one, talked with Dean, and said, absolutely, this cam will work for nitrous, no problem. So, it was time to pull the supercharger.
That comes through here.
It comes through.
I'm okay. I can't reach.
Okay, now we get on my side.
Okay, get your handle. Okay.
It's just gonna ring around the fire, the hardest part. So, this is what I was saying in this.
Oh, it's dry?
Yeah, it's right.
Okay.
So it's getting enough.
There you go, right there.
And of course, lots of trips to Summit for fittings and more fittings and different fittings and other fittings.
Then I was just thinking, oh shit, it's 4 for this, not 6. So,
Oh, for the gauge?
yeah, the gauge is about 4. So,
Since this is a 2-stage plate kit, it means we need 3 fuel regulators, 3 fuel gauges, 3 of everything.
Nice. Yeah, that's nice.
One other thing that we realized when we were at the track was the bench seat that Dad had in there, as nice as it looked, sat too tall and he could not see the Christmas tree. He had to lean down and over in the car to even see the staging lights. That needed to be changed if we're going actually drag racing. And he made the decision to ditch the passenger seat, which helped immensely with the other things we had to do. Going with a totally new shock setup was going to take some thought and fabrication. And Hans is Dad's go-to guy for all things fabricating, thinking, and just general hot rodding.
shocks, put
This
this
puts
between.
a links underneath the shocks. The shock should be able to use the eye on the shock to go right there. And bolt it right
Oh, it's
in.
too big, I gotta get up above that. It's 2 inches wide, they're like 2 inches wide. There's not a frame there. So we
Okay.
you have to get up.
But usually the shock, the eyelet is down from the body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they just might make it in there.
Okay. There's clearance between the other stuff. Yeah. I thought the aluminum shocks, these would look pretty cool right there.
Right.
The
So you don't
tabs.
have the shocks yet.
No, because I had to get to see what this would work before I ordered the shock.
Right.
And they're double adjustable aluminums, but I mean, there's gonna be a double eyelet. We tell them what size bolt hole we want, right, Wayne?
Yeah, it's basically going to be the exact same shock that's on the back of the truck.
Oh,
So if you want to look at the back of the
Oh,
truck for
great.
reference,
Okay,
it's
that's
the exact same shock.
Yeah, the addition part is a short stub.
And then we can bolt to this, and that's a really nice finish.
So
This
you
is,
want to bolt this on to the frame.
I would like to.
Okay.
I would like to. And I thought here, and we can even cut this. We don't need.
You don't need
we,
to cut nothing.
Okay. Well,
You don't
whatever.
need to cut
Yeah,
nothing.
Okay.
That's how much room your shock's gonna take right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, turn this over, and if we had this shock connector, the eyelet, look at that. The eyelet go right into the existing hole that's there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You ain't gotta change nothing, no adapter, no nothing. Because this part is gonna move with the axle. Because here's gonna be shock up here,
Mm-hmm.
okay? All you gotta do is put spacer between here where it bolts. 5/8 bolt going right through
Oh.
with a 1/2 inch spacer
Oh. Okay.
in between.
Mm-hmm.
You're done.
Okay.
90-degree angle, the bolt from here, right there,
Yep.
all the way down.
Yep.
Okay? And instead of putting a bolt in here, we could put a tab on the bottom
Yep.
and bolt it in from the bottom.
Yep.
Okay, now if you hook it up right now at 14, okay, I'm just using it as a number.
Right.
The frame is gonna come up, so it's gonna drop down to like an 11. You're gonna need at least a 3-inch drop in the shock to shorten it. So then the shock is supposed to expand also.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say if it's starting with a 13-inch, it's gonna have to go up to 16 and then back down to 10. I would say a 14-inch shock if you wanna go
Okay.
up to the top of the bolt,
Okay.
into the plate. Awesome.
I said, I thought we had a lot of, there's no reason to start welding this car when we didn't have to this. If we change it,
It'll be all bolt up.
yeah, this, I thought made a lot more sense.
So with that, we placed an order for some new Viking shocks. And I could get started on making a new wiring panel.
And then you want to make it so parallel with the roll cage, you think? Or not?
Either way, I mean, I feel like a slight angle might be easier if we're working on wires and stuff, just because it's then if you got a light over it, it's easier to see.
This old painless wiring fuse block had done its job, but I wanted something that was easier to see, easier to get to the fuses, and just looked nicer. So while I started laying that out, Dad started working on the gauge pod for the new fuel gauges. Three fuel gauges that he could see without blocking his 7-inch windshield was kind of a tall order, so we came up with this idea of using an old headlight. He got the shock towers welded and grounded and mocked up just in time for the shocks to show up. Don't freak out, he's got gussets to support the shoulder.
Get up so high, I'm looking too. Yeah, I mean, because it shuts the towers in this picture there.
We got this leather satchel off Amazon to hold the laptop for the grid. Although you can't deny how cool the blower looked, the truck still looks pretty good. And should be much more controllable while still being fast. The shock brackets with the gussets welded on got dropped off to the chrome shop to be back before the piston power show. Little by little, the truck started really coming together, and we were down to just wiring the nitrous up. So, 2 months after we pulled the blower off, we were ready to fire this thing back up, make sure everything worked. Now we had a 50-50 shot on which was the return line and which was the feed line.
Hit the switch and see what we got. Nothing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We got a big ass leak. All right, hit it again real fast.
Yep.
That's what it is. Okay. All right, go ahead. Hold on, I heard something. Yeah, we got a leak right here going into the carb. Yeah, this one's not tight. Hold on.
How's your fuel pressure now?
Well, now they're all over 8. I bet it was low on fuel, and that's why it sounded weird.
Wait till you see what he's got coming to hold those fuel gauges.
Yep. Is your pump on? Fuel pump? Oh, okay.
No, I did just, I figured we was getting started, that's all I'm doing.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm like, there's no fuel pressure. Go ahead. Just crap on the headers.
I just figured it started. It sounded funny as mist, but it's probably just the way things sat there for a second.
Yeah. Go ahead.